She doesn't know how to warm tea. Oh, look, we're on.
I love to read them.
Hey, we're live. We're streaming. I don't know how that happened. Okay, if you're just joining us, thank you. We were having some techno issues there. I think it was called Cindy Lippert's shirt says Rev She, so who knows what it's called. But anyway, thank you for joining us for Christians and Cocktails here on Monday evening at 6 p.m. with the Sunshine Cathedral. We are live, and so I hope everything that was said previously didn't get picked up. If it did, we're a different kind of church. Hashtag it, and we're there. So moving on, we are just a PSA. Monday through Saturday is midday prayer. This week, though, we're actually doing midday prayer revival style. So if you missed Darrell's midday prayer today, go take a look at it, and you'll see what's going to be coming for the rest of this week. Again, that's rest of this week at noon for midday prayer revival style. Then, of course, on Wednesday is Share in the Chair, and this week's Share in the Chair is with Tim. Help me, Darrell.
Stewart.
Tim Stewart, there it is. I lost his last name. Who is with the Divine Science, and he's going to be on Share and Share for 6 p.m. on Wednesday. And then, of course, also on Saturday is Just a Thought with Darrell and Cindy. And then on Sunday, of course, we got 9 and 10:30 with Street at 10:30 service live. But tonight we are with Share and it's too many of them going on. We're with Christians and Cocktails. And so we're glad you're here. We have Tara and Sam. We have Margarita. We have filling in for Dennis and Tenito is Cindy Lippert. And it's the senior minister, the Reverend Dr. Darrell Watkins. So Darrell, take it away with drinks in hand. Whatever you may have.
We have a secret drink word, but we're not going to tell you. You'll see when we all guzzle. It'll probably happen when Tara's speaking, just so you know. Okay, so...
Should they type it in the chat if they can figure out what it is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, I should cover mine, huh?
Yeah. Well, no, it's diet soda and Christians and diet soda. That's the name of the thing. So really.
Hey, some of us have to represent the 12-step people.
Yes.
Come on.
Is it like missionaries and mocktails?
Yeah, mocktails. All right, so yeah, Dennis and Tito, they are away. We have no idea why, and we assume only the worst about it. And but we have, every few weeks we have a very special guest. Tonight's special guest is Reverend She. Look at it. Look, there it goes. The Reverend Cindy Lippert, whose services she's part of a thing that offers all kinds of coaching and counseling and advising and whatnot. At sagecoachingandcounseling.com. So we have with us the Reverend Margarita Rodriguez, who is a spiritual director and the chaplain for the Divine Science Federation. And then we have two of our artists in residence at the Sunshine Cathedral, Sam and Tara, and then Robert Griffin, my husband, and our engineer and the executive minister for the Sunshine Cathedral. So we're going to talk about, who knows, we're not going to stay on topic. I'm not going to lie to you about what we're going to talk about. We're just going to start talking. So let's begin. Some questions will come in and we'll address them because Tito is not with us. Tara is the new Tito. And so if you have questions or comments that we need to know about, she's moderating that. And so you can put it in the thread and she'll relay it. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and she's already killing it. She's already the carbon copy of Tito. All right, so let's start with Sam. Sam, ask us something.
Okay. I don't know who wrote this question, but I like it. Okay. It says, I think I'm an atheist, but I don't want to be. I especially want to believe that there is life after death, but I find it hard to believe. What would you say to somebody like me?
Yeah, what would I say to somebody like Sam?
Asking for a friend.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Right. That's the thing, is that you just can't believe what you can't believe. So in fact, it takes, I think, faith to believe something that doesn't make sense to you, or that you can't see or that you can't figure out, and yet you still sort of cling to it. I think that takes faith. And the Apostle Paul said that faith is a gift. Well, everyone gets the same gift. So if faith isn't a gift that you have, no one can hold you accountable or responsible for a gift you weren't given. So I don't think it's, I mean, I get that if your family's religious and you just can't quite get there, that you might feel disconnected from your family, or if you felt like you had this really special connection to something divine when you were younger and now you've lost that, you have like some sense of grief over, losing that. So, I mean, all that's, real, all that makes sense. But whatever we believe, I don't believe what I believed 2 minutes ago. I don't believe what I believed 2 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And so if in this moment in time, you don't believe a thing that you used to believe, well, I think that's all of us. And, 6 months from now, 6 years from now, you may believe something very, very different than you do right now about this. So, if you're seeking, if you're searching, Jesus said, seeking, you'll find. So I think if you're really seeking for what's real and what matters to you, you'll find it. And it may not look like what I find. So, so that you aren't secure or sure about what to call the numinous or the mysterious or ultimate reality. You're not sure how you relate to it, if you need to relate to it. Those are all legitimate questions. And I think all seekers ask those questions at some point, and we don't all come up with the same answers. What was the other part? I believe it. Oh, the afterlife. Nobody knows. So believe it, don't believe it. That's none of us, we can't prove it, right? What is comforting to me is that this life is pretty good. You know what I mean? I know some great people. I've got a lot of love in my life. I have I laugh a lot. When I'm tired, I have a safe place to rest. When I'm hungry, I usually don't have any trouble finding food. Like, my life is pretty good. So if this is the only one, it was not a bad go, right? And I can always make it better. So, there's still a lot of work to do on this life to get all out of it that you can. And if there's something else, living this life fully is the best way to prepare for it. And if there's nothing else, we won't know anyway. So, so don't worry too much about the next. If whatever you do believe about it brings you comfort or joy, well, then have that. But try not to worry too much about it, because none of us can prove any of it anyway. So those are my thoughts right off the bat for someone who's sort of like Sam. Who else? We've got some deep thinkers. A similar question, the second part of that question, is what actually brought Reverend Cindy back to religion. And I'm sure that Reverend Margarita deals with this one-on-one with people a lot. So, and Robert was a chaplain in the military. This had to come up. So, somebody else, say something about it.
Well, my story is my childhood friend died at 42, and I was devastated, and I didn't know where she went. We were both raised in a fundamentalist church, very strict. We were in church at least 5 times a week, and we called on people and tried to get them saved and all that. I had gotten baptized twice because I didn't think I had it the first time. And so there was a lot of confusion. I totally relate to somebody who wants to believe in something that they just can't believe in, and I couldn't believe in that. So what happened when my friend died, I wanted to know where she went. And it inaugurated this search for the truth. And I had a wonderful teacher. I ended up having a lot of wonderful teachers. I ended up getting ordained and starting a church, started 2 churches, and took over another church, retired, got education, my bachelor's degree, my master's degree through the Samaritan Institute. And all these years later, I still don't know where she went, but I'm completely at peace about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me. I don't know anything, but I don't know. Like, I was trying to figure out for the longest time if I was ignorant or apathetic, and I finally decided I don't know and I don't care. Uh,
Well,
thank you. I'm here all
know,
week.
Well, some people would say, I don't get that. How can you be content with not knowing? But I guess the contentment for me came that nobody knows.
Exactly.
And the ministers that say they know absolutely are lying, but that's what they're saying, and that's what they believe to be the truth, and that's what they've
Really
told
angry.
themselves.
They're usually really angry about it.
Yeah, they're very angry. New
So-
thoughters always smile. I go back to, the land where I grew up. We'll just put it that way without, offending everybody.
The
But
old
I noticed how old and, that old and mad they were. And, you get around new thoughters and, they're happy and hopeful.
Yeah.
So I wanted some of that.
What would your response be, Margarita, to someone like Sam?
Like Sam.
You
Well,
should tell
yeah.
the world that I got this question yesterday or today, or maybe yesterday anyway, and I did not get it from Sam. I'm giving Sam a very
I
credit that she read it, but I'm
Maybe I should like hang out with this person. Maybe we would be buds.
it does sound Sammy, doesn't it? But anyway, what would you say to someone like Sam, Margarita?
I think, it's about what we know. We only know this life. The afterlife, everybody has a different take on it. And I mean, nobody knows. So I would say just stay in the path of trying to find joy here and live the present, every present moment to the fullest. And if you're doing that, then whatever happens, happens. But at least you know that you're fully content in this present moment, not trying to buy something for the afterlife, which nobody knows what's going to happen.
Right. Robert, do you have anything to add?
Well, growing up Baptist, we got treated with the if you do this, you go to heaven. If you do this, you go to hell. But it's like, okay, really, as I got older, who has a heaven or hell to put someone in, first of all? Secondly, do those places even exist? And thirdly, I don't know what's going on outside my door. So I certainly cannot tell you anything about the afterlife at this point. So I've just gotten comfortable, kind of like what Margarita's saying. All I have is here and now in this very moment. And I want it to be hopeful. I want it to be joyful. I want it to be pleasant. All the things that, that one would look forward to and hopefully enjoy in life. But, the whole afterlife thing is still an afterthought to me at this point. So, and I just prefer to be in the present.
If there's a God, then God, as I understand, God must be omnipresent. So there's no getting away from God. I'm in God right now. I'll be in God later. I mean, that this vehicle that I'm in, that I call a body, isn't keeping me from God now. And so when I leave the vehicle, I won't be away from God then. So God being omnipresent, if there's a God being omnipresent, I'll be with and in and part of God forever. I don't need to know what that's going to look like. And then if I'm wrong about there being a God at all, again, I won't know. So let me have my ignorance, let me believe what I want to believe. But the way it's presented, it does torment people, doesn't, that you've got to get the answer right on the final. And I think that's a terrible and abusive way to have presented religion. So if we can offer some sort of healing, we can't answer your question maybe to anyone's satisfaction, but maybe we can heal you from the abusive way religion was offered that made you feel the question was kind of a deal breaker, like a life or death kind of question for you.
Jarrell?
What always turned me off from religion and made me kind of identify more as an atheist or agnostic was actually the level of certainty that it seemed like everybody had about it. And then when I would question things, it would just be like, oh, well, that's not really how you do that. And I'd be like, well, and then so the thing that actually kind of brought me in, like made me want to go to the Sunshine Cathedral, made me want to sit here and have drinks with you guys and do this and like study more, was actually all of the super smart people who talked about how uncertain they were about all the answers. And so maybe like that might kind of help this person, like if you want to believe something that feels so concrete that everybody's like, oh, this is going to happen. And well, you don't have to believe that that's going to happen. You can believe something different, or like, it doesn't have to be so specific.
There is grace in the question. There's grace in living in the questions. Not every question has answers.
Yeah.
Cindy, you had something to add.
Oh, well, I've always got something to say. So, but what I was gonna say, Tara, is, the thing about the not knowing, it seems to me, we keep hearing, well, how can you have morals and ethics if you don't believe in heaven and hell? I would say that is a really rotten gauge to be a good person, rather than kindness and never intentionally hurting your fellow human would be a much greater standard than I want to make sure I get into heaven, which
Right.
is totally selfish driven, unproven,
EYA, religion,
fire insurance, that kind of thing.
fire insurance.
Yeah, but one of the reasons I was so drawn into the world of New Thought is that there was such peace of mind and hopefulness, and people who really wanted to be better and to treat themselves better and everybody around them. So it was just a happier existence.
There's something different about, I want to be my best self. I want to grow into the best version of me, versus I want to make sure that I want to tip the gatekeeper so he lets me in. I mean, that's a different, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Let's do something else. I'm tired of talking about death and some of the world that we don't know anything about. Margarita, ask us a question.
So there's a question here. What's the difference between salvation and grace?
Oh, wow. That's been on there for a while. I don't know who asked that. I think it came from the feed. And what usually happens is someone who asks from the feed and, we get back to it later. That person does not watch on the day we answer it. So, but I do remember not who, but about when. It was maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. Anyway, salvation is obviously to be rescued or saved from something. I think people on this panel would disagree with a lot of other people about what one is being saved from. Religion saves us, hopefully, from despair and from loneliness and from degradation. That's what we're saved from. We're saved from fear. We're saved from not loving ourselves. We're saved from not believing in ourselves. And that salvation leaves us whole. We're not fractured by our fears. We're not fractured by loneliness or by desperation or by degradation. And so we're integrated, we're whole. So that's what salvation is. And the Greek word that is translated salvation also means healing, also means wholeness, also means liberation, all really good things. So salvation is, now, a lot of people use it as if you were saved from the ogre god, you're saved from your own depravity, you're saved from the boogeyman devil. And I don't think anyone on this panel would buy into any of that. But we do need rescuing from our unproductive thinking, from our self-defeating thinking. We need rescuing from despair, degradation, loneliness. We need to be rescued or liberated from whatever that keeps us from experiencing our innate wholeness. And Christians think that Jesus's message can get you there. And so we try to understand it, we try to live it, we try to follow it, we try to share it. I think most of the people on this panel would identify as universalist. And so we would probably say poetry or Buddhism or non-sectarian meditation or Hinduism or any one of 100 other things might get you there. If that's what speaks to you, if that's what feels authentic and liberating and joyful for you. And even those of us who are pluralistic, we probably have to admit, yeah, love me some Buddha, love me some Rumi, love me some Hafiz, but Jesus got me going. Jesus got me started out, and Jesus is always who I come home to. So salvation is sort of becoming your best self, and religion is a path that helps you do that, ideally. Grace is unmerited favor. Grace is just the goodness that just is. You don't earn it, and you can't lose it. So you don't have to tip the gatekeeper because there's nobody out to get you. Grace is the goodness that just is. and it's for you just because you exist. You can't buy it and you can't lose it. That's what makes it grace. If there's any transaction involved, it's not grace. If you had to earn it, if you had to pass the test, if you had to pay for something, if you have to believe that someone else had to pay something, that's not grace. Grace is absolutely free. And so I guess the grace is we are innately whole. The salvation is learning and embracing that we are innately whole. Those would be my takes on it. Anyone else?
Well, salvation, when I was a kid in the Baptist church, was that you had to utter very particular words in front of the congregation and then be baptized, and that had to be by immersion. And so you can imagine, my mother made sure all that happened when I was 8 years old. Well, by the time I was 15, I had a lot of doubts. And so I told my friend during the service, I wasn't sure. So she went forward with me during the altar call. And so I went through the whole public thing. And then, of course, they baptize you right then, because if you get home, you know, you might think differently.
Right while the iron is hot.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So on the way home, of course, my hair is dripping wet and I'm soaked. And my mother said, I thought we had this settled. I thought we had this settled. And I said, I wasn't sure. And she said, well, I hope you're satisfied. That's how religion was presented to me. I'm trying to get this right. And you know, it's now an offense against her motherhood that I didn't get it the first time at 8 years old. So, you know, and you can imagine how upset she was years later when I became a Unity minister. So, you know, it's grace. I love when I learned about grace, because I sure didn't learn about it as a kid. I didn't. And maybe everybody tried to explain it to me, but it took a fallen Pentecostal woman who was a sharecropper's daughter, one of 9 kids, and had dropped out of high school at 15, that could understand God better than anybody I knew. And she said, Cindy, there's only 3 things you need to know about God. Number 1, God loves you unconditionally. And I said, yeah, but you don't know who I am. You don't know what I've done. You don't know where I've been. She said, it doesn't matter. You get a do-over. You get to choose again. You didn't earn it, so you can't lose it. Just because you were born perfect, whole, and complete, and that means everybody, not just only a special club, that you get a new choice in every minute.
Everyone.
And she said, your only purpose for being here is to give and receive love. Well, that overwhelmed me. That was the first time in my life that I had a true religious experience, because I realized whatever this omnipresence was, I was supported. You can call that love, whatever you want to call it, that I was completely supported, and whatever I chose was okay. Were there consequences for those choices? Of course, but it was my choice. Nobody was choosing it for me, and I wasn't damned because I made a choice that maybe I'd make a different choice another time. That was the beginning for me.
And we only know what we know. We make our choices based on what we know, and we just don't know what we don't know. So yeah, if you, once you learn a thing, then you may choose differently, because now you know what you didn't know. And so it's a process. It's a growth process. Margarita, you chose the question from the list of questions. It must have had some appeal to you. How would you answer it?
Yeah, I liked it because it reminded me of what A Course in Miracles says, and it's pretty much what we're saying. You know, salvation being, you know, being aware of the separation and healing that separation that we have in our mind, healing guilt, healing sin, and really being back to our state of spirit. And then grace is exactly that, is being aware of our spirit in as it is, intact. So that's what the Course says. It's grace is our natural way of being in spirit. So for me, I liked it because, like, you know, I grew up Catholic, so those two had a lot of meanings or weight on it when you grow up Catholic. So salvation when I grew up was like something I needed to do, and I needed to go to confession, and I needed to do things to earn it. And then, grace, I wasn't even sure what that meant then, and just to know that, we are always in grace, and that we can attain salvation every time that we choose again. It's just redeeming.
Yeah, that is a line right out of A Course in Miracles. Choose once again. And that's always our power. We can choose again and again and again. Tara, why don't you ask us something else? Because I know you had like 3 questions from the last 3 weeks were yours, and we've been spreading them out. And I think we're to the last one that you had contributed. You always can, have one on the spot. But I know you.
Well, I do have one left from my list that's on deck. However, I think
As our new moderator.
I think along this conversation of grace and self-acceptance and all of that, and not being separate from God, there's a really good question in the chat that I'd like to throw at you, if that's okay.
Cool.
All right, so it says, I'm struggling with being trans and accepting that because of my Christian background, about it being wrong and a sin. How can I just be myself and not feel ashamed?
Oh, honey. Oh my gosh. I'm so glad this person is here tonight. I'm so glad that this person is hearing this and asked that question. I don't know if this is a trans masculine person or a trans feminine person. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to cry and shout and have just a religious experience just because this person is with us tonight. I love this. First of all, I am so sorry that Christianity has been presented to you as if it were innately transphobic. There is nothing the Apostle Paul said. There is nothing Jesus said. There's nothing the Apostle said. There's nothing that the councils in the hundreds of years that followed Jesus said. There is nothing that would condemn transgender, genderqueer, gender nonconforming, gender non-binary people. In fact, gender performance, how you are expected to act as a gendered person, and I say that ED gendered because you were assigned a gender and then you're expected to look and live like that, whether or not it's authentic for you. But none of that is core to Scripture. All of that is culturally dictated and culturally informed, and there have always been people who sort of bucked the cultural norms. And so when Jesus, who we assume, we don't know, it could be anything, and if your experience and your understanding of Jesus is non-binary, have that. But certainly historically, Jesus has been presented as a cis male, right? And so if we just pretend that we know that, we don't know that, but if we just pretend that we know that he's a cisgender male, we see Jesus looking over beautiful Jerusalem, one of the most beautiful places on the planet, and crying. Not just every typical masculine guy just sits around thinking deep thoughts, crying. He's looking over beautiful Jerusalem, crying, and he says, "Oh, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, how I would have gathered you to me as a hen gathers her chicks." We see a presumably a cisgender man comparing himself to a mother hen and expressing love for his people and for a city that is iconic for him, and it's the center of his religious faith. And he's saying, what I wanted, I'm in trouble with you. I've pissed you off. I've ruffled a lot of feathers, but it's all out of love. I just love you so much, and I just wanted to treat you like a mother, protecting and loving her chicks. That's Jesus speaking to the people he loved. That is Jesus not worrying about gender norms or cultural expectations. Just mother chicken, mother hen Jesus just goes all out. in expressing this love for her people. We also know the Apostle Paul says that in Christ, those of us who form the Christ community and we are in that community, Paul said pretty unambiguously, in Christ, there is neither male nor female. And then, you know, we say that we're in God. We say that we're made in the image of God. Well, the creation myth says that God looked at all of creation and called it very good. Well, that must be straight and gay and bi and asexual. That must be queer and questioning. That must be transgender and cisgender. That must be gender queer and gender non-conforming and gender fluid and gender non-binary. All of creation is very good. The prophet Ezekiel, when he had a vision of the divine, says that his vision was God appeared like the bow in the sky on a rainy day. The rainbow God, the God that is light and many colors and overarching and including everything, this diverse image of God. And there are so many names for God in scripture, and a lot of them are, you know, like Adonai, which means my Lord. But other images and names for God are gender neutral, and others are feminine. And so when we talk about the Shekinah glory of God, Shekinah is a feminine image. When we talk about the Spirit, in Greek, pneuma is it's gender neutral, but in Hebrew, ruach is feminine. Ruach is a feminine word and a feminine energy. El Shaddai, some people will translate that as God of the mountains. Feminist scholars say those mountains are actually boobs. And so when you say El Shaddai, you are saying the big-breasted God. The God who nurtures and feeds from her own self, right? One of the Middle Ages, one of the images for Christ in the Middle Ages was a pelican, a mother pelican, tearing at her own breast to feed her chicks, or whatever baby pelicans are called. And so God is trans. God can't, for God to be omnipresent and inclusive of all that is, God can't just be male. God has to be, in fact, there's this hymn we sing, our God is not a woman, our God is not a man, our God is both and neither, our God is I who am. In fact, the I am that I am, that is a translation of Yahweh, which is just a to be verb. It basically means being or isness. And trans people are part of isness. Transgender people have being. So they're made in the image of God. And so I don't know why people have, well, I do know why, because that's what people do. They have pushed their prejudices and their discomforts and their ignorance on people and said they were doing it to help God out. They're wrong. They're mistaken. God, she, he, they, it, those, them do not need any help. God is not threatened because we have a diverse experience of life. I myself, and I try not to make too big of a deal of it because I don't want to sort of horn in on people who are struggling with prejudice against transgender people or whatever, but I myself consider myself non-binary. And so I just want people to know that whatever you are is what you are, and that is made in the image of God, and that is part of what God looks at and calls very good. That in Christ there's neither male nor female, that God is the rainbow God that includes all kinds of diversity and beauty and difference. And as we've said throughout the broadcast, God is omnipresent. There's not a spot where God is not. And for God to be omnipresent means that God is really the only presence, that God is all there is. God is not only the maker, God is the stuff out of which we're all made. And so if God is omnipresent, we are part of God, we are in God, we are never separated from God. And so a person of trans experience is as sacred, as holy, as divine, as part of God as anyone else. And that's the truth as I know it. And so people who have used God to make other people hate themselves or fear themselves or be ashamed of themselves, they have used God's name in vain. And I'm sorry about that, but I promise you, every person on this panel will 100% affirm you for who you are and see your sacred value and know you to be a perfect child of God, just as you are.
Darrell, just as a footnote to what you're saying, I think that
Sorry.
for this person who posed this question, I thank you for doing this. Thank you for commenting. And it really fits in with the theme from yesterday at church.
Yes.
If you, the whole theme around it gets better. And that can apply to so many different things across so many different lines. Go back, watch the sermon, just watch the whole service. It's all really focused towards, I think, helping some people deal with this type of a question as well, about how we really can be supportive, ally, and just help people know that it gets better. And they don't have to do this by themselves. So I think the big footnote is just for me to say thank you to this person for posing this on this thread. Thank you for the response. And for anyone else who may watch this later, please watch the service from yesterday, because I think it really nails home so much of what we're talking about here tonight on this topic.
Tara sings a beautiful song about it gets better. It's really a good service. So please watch it. That is such a powerful, important question. I want that to be the last question, but I don't want me to have the last word about it. So please, other people, respond. Who asked that? Oh, Tara, you knew you were winding me up. You knew I was going to go off. You knew I was.
Well, I'm glad you did, because I had the same thought that Robert had. It was so along the lines of our service yesterday. And you two boys, Robert and Darrell, you brought it home with that message yesterday. And I remember specifically something that really hit me hard was when Robert got up and spoke, and he said, there's somebody in Salt Lake City, Utah, and he in South Carolina, I don't remember all the cities you named, but South Carolina and Alabama and all these small towns. And there might be someone sitting under a blanket with their computer watching this because they're so afraid to get caught. And I think that this is proof that we're reaching those people.
Yeah.
It's really powerful.
Sam, Sam is a professor, and so she deals with young adults all the time. This kind of thing comes to you, I bet. How do you encourage
I
people?
mean, I see it. I teach at a performing arts high school in college. So I have a lot of queer young people that are just sort of working those things out, just discovering who they are, just, kind of experimenting with the ideas of gender. They're in a performing arts academy. So they're in this place where they're feeling exceptionally vulnerable and being asked to bring things from themselves, and just and then sometimes I'll have a student in class, and I'll just feel like, oh my God, I love this kid. He's queer. He's awesome. He's like my kind of guy. I want to hang out with him when he's old enough, or whatever. Like, I feel like these are my people, and like I'm so glad that I'm one of his professors. And then I'll be casually talking to the dean or another professor about them, and I'll hear about their parents, and I'll hear about how they their parents dragged them in and was worried that their kid was being exposed to gay people, and I'm like, okay, do they know how, but they don't. I'll just
a theater program, what would they even suspect?
Yeah, and then I'll just see them like they're here in this place where they can maybe be who they are with some of their professors or friends, and then at night they have to go home, and a lot of times we don't know what that's like. We don't know what their background is or their religion, and so just trying to be present with them and allow them to kind of be who they are in this place that they feel they can, is really important. And at Sunshine Cathedral, you can do that at church, which is something that's like
Unheard of.
Crazy to me.
Yeah.
That like, that's the affirming place rather than, your drama class or your friend's house, where their parents may be cool or something like that. But to be able to do that in a church surrounded by queer people of all ages, like affirming queer people that are older. I mean, oh man,
I'm a teacher too. I'm not a professor, but I'm a teacher, and I teach elementary school, and I have students who are trans, and they're perfect. They're elementary age. They cannot sin. They don't know right from wrong. They're perfect and whole and complete, and they're trans, and they know that young.
How beautiful to know so early.
Yeah.
I just want to say this. I know you're trying to get to Margarita. I'll just send it for this, but I think I'm just going to put a challenge out to everyone who saw the sermon yesterday, who is listening to this conversation tonight. Take this feed and forward it at least to 10 other people, because by forwarding these types of messages on, we can also help to ensure that this message gets to a broader community. And also, kind of reminder from Tara, to that little kid who is under a blanket somewhere watching on their phone out of fear that they are the only one. It is 2020, and that reality is still there. That somewhere, some little kid is on their iPhone, under a blanket, under the bed, under the pillow, whatever, saying, "Oh my God, it's going to get better." And so I just want to put that challenge out there to everybody who's watching. Share this with 10 people, 10, however you want to do it. Yesterday's sermon and this talk tonight, please share it with 10 people.
Yesterday and today, yes. And I'm tired. I'm tired of religion being weaponized against queer people, against trans people, against people who are different, against Muslims, against refugees. Tired of it, which is why Sunshine Cathedral is a different kind of church. We're here for you. We're going to love you. We're going to keep you safe. We're going to fight with you. We're going to fight for you. We may be vastly outnumbered. I don't think we're as outnumbered as people. We're just more vocal. But we're here for you, and help us let other people know that. Cindy, when I was a young adult, there was a religious science minister, very similar to Divine Science and Unity and A Course in Miracles and all our shtick. And she had this Nana quality. She wasn't sexy grandma, like your shtick, but she had the grandma hair and the jewels on every finger and the flashy grandma sweaters, and she had the Nana gig for sure. And she was big, and she loved to hug. She called everybody honey and darling, and when I needed a safe presence, she was one of those people for me. And when I was sort of working out sort of what I wanted to do in the world, and then also with HIV status, and just so many times she was the person who would just love me into myself. Because she was, not only did she have the nice words and she smelled nice, and but she was Nana. She was she was Big Mama. That was her ministry. She even entered into ministry until she was 60, and she had it till she was in her mid-90s. Your grandma, you're now in your early 70s, which is the new 37. I mean, I know that, but still, you've lived, and like younger actors come to you because they get like some mom energy off of you or whatever. So as the nurturer, matron, and I say that with love and respect and awe, what do you say to some kid? And meaning that kid could be 50, or 40 or 30 or 20, but what does your mother's heart just want to say to somebody right now that's struggling with this?
The only thing that and I try not to have too many regrets, but I wish I had known somebody like you when I was a kid growing up and understanding about Jesus, the great example, not the great exception, that there is just as much evidence that Jesus was gay as others would say, well, maybe he was married. And yet only homophobia would cause us not to entertain the question. Jesus could have been trans, who knows? We don't know. The thing that I do know is a woman came to me years ago, early in ministry, and said, I used to be lesbian, and I got my heart broken, and I'm all done with that. And now I'm looking for a man. And I said, okay. And she said, well, I want love in my life, and I want a partner. And I said, okay, how about this? How about you affirm love is being magnetized to you right now in all the many forms that it could possibly show up, that it's the love that you're after, not so much the form. And it's like a big weight just went off. She kept trying to somehow figure out how she could show up acceptable rather than I'm free to love the way I love. And if there's anything I could tell anybody, we've got to stop judging And the only way we can do that is we've got to stop judging ourselves. It starts with us. You know, I can't love you unless I love me. And if I don't love me, then all I'm going to do is send out some kind of exotic bait, hoping you'll take my bait and tell me how wonderful I am, so then I can feed it back to you. And that's an exhausting relationship. We have to understand that we're made perfect, whole, and complete, exactly as we are, because we were born. We are entitled to a good life. And I believe that helping each other walk each other home is the greatest thing that we can do. Thank God for a community like Sunshine Cathedral. You know, I talk to everybody who will listen in, mostly those who don't even want to listen, about your great community, because it is a universal message.
Margarita, last word is yours on our last question. Margarita is our spiritual companion, spiritual director, helping people connect with God right where they are, in their own way, on their own terms. That's her ministry, and I don't know anyone who's better at it. So I want, for real, you to have the last words on this.
Well, I think, you know, we said it, and I think, you know, having the Sunshine Cathedral, being part of it, I'm super proud that we can bring this message of love, unconditional love for everyone. I think the trans community probably is one of the ones that gets the most, right, aggression and not understanding, and we're here for you wherever you are. So we're welcoming you with open arms. We're redeeming religion for you. And, you know, Jesus wasn't conforming in the ways that he worked in the world, because he didn't conform to any of the rules of the time. So that's an example right there. So he was loving to everybody. That was his ministry. So how can we not love every person, no matter what their orientation of gender or sexual? It doesn't matter. We're all part of God. So we just need to be kind to each other and really remember that we're only one, that this is spirit, and here we are to be loving to each other, because our brother is our reflection, as A Course in Miracles says. So if I can see my trans brother or sister in love, I can see myself in love.
All righty, folks. Well, thank everyone so much for joining us tonight and taking time out of your schedule. You probably never seen us be this weepy on a on one of these before, but there it is. And again, I just want to encourage you, everyone, in closing, please, please, please watch the sermon service from yesterday. Also, if you're just joining, I see some people who are just joining the Christians in Contact, go back and listen to the whole thing tonight. And also remember my challenge, everyone, please share yesterday's sermon and tonight's talk with at least 10 people. Either privately send it to them or publicly send it to them, but share it, because it's a message we really want to get out there, because we want to help people know that it does get better in so many different areas. Thank you for joining us tonight. Visit sunshinecathedral.org for all of our program listings and what's coming up. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening. Darrell.
Hold them up. Calm, stop, wait.
Yes, Mario.
Hey, Mario. The word was Mormon, and for the first time in months, it didn't come up. Mormon.
Yes, the Mormons.
I didn't
All
do
right.
my job. I'm sorry.
But P.S., I also want to know, we're here because we love you, even if we don't know you yet. And I want everyone to know I love everyone on this panel. This is a joy to just spend time with you every Monday. So thanks for doing this. And keep watching us. Keep sharing us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Good night, everybody that was watching us. Thanks for being with us. Take care. Bye-bye.